Introducing National Streaming Sports, live and on-demand sports talk programming that you can access 24/7. For the premier sports talk experience, tap into our Roku channel. Start your mornings with Mac and Jack covering all the weekend sports action. Then pour a cup and enjoy all the sports you can drink on the Coffee and Sports podcast. At midday, talk sports from east to west on the Coast to Coast podcast. Followed at night by some hot girl talk with Prim and Proper Sports featuring Sonia Pearson. Talk boxing on the Gloved Fist. Yankee fans tune in for Start Spreading the News. And there's more on the College Sports Huddle and Sports Scope with Robert Butler. There are 20 podcasts in all and 70 weekly shows giving us a 3.4-star viewer rating. To find us on Roku TV, search for National Streaming Sports on the Roku search bar. Click on the logo and you're in. National Streaming Sports, live and on-demand sports talk for America.
This is a presentation of Northeast Streaming Sports.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Dr. Sem Yankee Show. We are here every single Saturday morning at 7 a.m. right before the Mac and Jack Saturday Show. Reminder, as always, that this wonderful program is brought to you by Artemisia Publishing, a traditional publisher located in the good old United States of America. Artemisia has a wide selection of great books by great authors, including, me. Bunch of my baseball books are published by Artemisia. My newest Yankee book, which will come out next February, that's February 2026. Start counting down now. That will also be published by Artemisia. They've also published my audio book, or the audio book for my novel, Scattering the Ashes. And in production right now is an audio book for my Yankee book, The Least Among Them. So check out Artemisia Publishing. And as we say every week, let's make today a great day. How do you make your day great? You look for the good. Look for the good. Find the good and appreciate the good. When you see goodness all around you, you cannot help but have a great day. But if by some chance you can't find any good, if that's possible, that everything is so bad that you can't find any good, well, then go out and create good. Do something nice for someone else. And if you do that, then you have something that's good that you can look to. But then you have something that you've perpetuated. You've pushed it forward. You've made somebody else's day great. And that's how we make the world a better place. Remember, when we give love and kindness, it comes back to us in greater amounts than we ever gave. Now, this week, my friends, hopefully we'll have time for some Yankee talk, but I have my friend Jeffrey Orens here, a fellow member of the Society of American Baseball Research, the Elysian Fields, Northern New Jersey chapter. We hung out a couple weeks ago at the Larry Doby event in Patterson, and Jeff is the brand new author, his second book, but his first about baseball, of the book titled Selling Baseball: How Superstars George Wright and Albert Spalding Impacted Sports in America. Jeff, that was a long introduction. How are you?
You did a great job, though. It's good to be here, Paul. Good to see you.
You too, as well. You've always been just a happy, kind-hearted, warm person. When I did a few of the interviews with Saber that were online, I'd always look at your face with all the faces on the Zoom, because you always have a smile. You're always welcoming. You're always encouraging. And it's just really, I'm glad we had the pleasure to meet in person a couple weeks ago. You're just really a special human being.
Well, I got to tell you, when you talk about how to have a good day, sometimes it's good to read a good book. And that sort of led me to what we're going to talk about today. But yes, I enjoy baseball especially, but every day it's a chance to do something new and exciting. So you got to grab it while you can, right?
100%. So tell us a little about the book, Selling Baseball, George Wright and Albert Spalding. People
Yeah.
know I think about Albert Spalding because of the sporting goods, but these are not names that are current when people are talking about baseball history or baseball today.
Absolutely. Sure, sure. So, when you talk about George Wright, people might look at you with a quizzical view and say, oh yeah, the Wright brothers, right? They were in aviation, weren't they? Well, this is a generation before. This was when baseball was forming in the mid 1800s, the 1850s and 60s, and this guy named George Wright was the first superstar in professional baseball. He was the man. They called him the king of baseball. He could do it all. He practically invented the shortstop position because of his unique capabilities. He was quick. He was ambidextrous. He could throw with either hand. He was accurate. He was a great base runner. He was a great hitter. He was the man in baseball. And it's a shame that no one really knows him today. But in his day, you could look at him and call him the true superstar. It's interesting about Spalding because Spalding's known for his sports equipment business. But before that, Spalding was on George Wright's team in the Boston Red Stocking days of the 1870s, the first professional baseball dynasty. The Red Stockings won 4 consecutive championships from 1872 to 75. They were the team. They had the superstar George Wright on the team, and they had the superstar pitcher of the era, Albert Spalding. He was a great pitcher before he was a sporting goods promoter. So these two guys were quite a pair.
And your book talks about how they have, after, I guess, meeting as baseball players, and they had very different backgrounds, but then they became lifelong friends, correct?
They did. These guys, when I looked into their history, these guys were competitors against each other. Then they were on the same team, the Boston Red Stockings. Then they went out and formed their own sporting goods businesses and were competitors again. And then finally, Spalding saw how good George Wright was doing, and he said, I want to buy your business. And George Wright was at the end of his string in the business world, and he said, have at it, Albert. You can buy the business. Just keep me as president and keep the name of my business, Wright and Ditson. He had a partner, Henry Ditson, who had just passed away, and that's why George wanted to give up his business. He didn't want to run both ends, the inside, which is what Ditson did, the operations and the finances, and George did the outside. He was Mr. Salesman. He was the guy who promoted different sports, and he basically said, I don't want to do both. I'm going to hang it up. I'm going to sell to Albert, but I'll be, the face of Wright and Ditson for you. Spalding couldn't think anything better. He thought this was great. And so they looked like they were still competitors in the marketplace, Wright and Ditson and Spalding and Brothers. But Spalding was the silent partner to the whole thing. And they were friends for 45 years, playing in the sports business in terms of equipment and promoting it all the time. That's where selling baseball gets its title. These guys were selling as they were playing, as they were selling sporting goods. They were talking, they were spreading the word about baseball to the world. They wanted people to know that this is a sport like no other. And they did a great job doing it.
They sure did. Now, this is interesting. We still have Spalding Sporting Goods, but I don't recall seeing the name Wright on anything. So what happened to that end of the business?
So what happened basically was, after a while in the early 1900s, Spalding merged all of these businesses. He bought a number of them. There were sporting good businesses run by people like Al Reach, who was a second baseman for the Philadelphia Athletics.
I remember I have a bat that's a Reach bat.
There you go. And Spalding bought his business, just like he bought Wright and Ditson. He bought another business that was probably the first big sporting equipment business in the country, called Peck and Snyder, out of New York City, out of Manhattan, Lower Manhattan. And he bought those guys, and he rolled up all these businesses by the early 1900s, about 1920, 1930, into Spalding and Brothers. And the names started to disappear. Yeah, they were brand names on some of the equipment. Because Wright and Ditson was so strong outside of baseball, in tennis, he kept the Wright and Ditson name on tennis goods for many years into the 60s and 70s. So you could find wooden tennis rackets, tennis balls that were Wright and Ditson. They were known as the highest quality pieces of equipment made in the country until metal rackets came along and sort of overwhelmed everything. And by the 70s, Wright and Ditson, the name had just sort of faded into obscurity. It's sort of funny. Wright and Ditson, if you go online, you can actually find the name associated with a sports clothing company, shirts, caps, that sort of stuff. But they themselves are so unaware of George Wright that they have at the bottom of their page online a picture of his brother, Harry Wright. They tout him as George Wright. That's how obscure George Wright is now. So
amazing.
It's quite a situation.
That is amazing. So I have so many questions to ask you and so little time. So let's just start with this one. Where did the idea come from? How did you decide that you were going to write a baseball book about these two stars and then lifelong friends who played in the 1880s?
It goes back a ways. I was actually writing some history for some history journals. This was about a half dozen years ago. And it was at that time that I was writing an article about the Cincinnati Red Stockings for the 2019 150th anniversary of the only undefeated team in professional baseball. It was the Cincinnati Red Stockings of 1869. And of course, I ran across George Wright on the team, and I ran across Albert Spalding as a pitcher who was a hard luck pitcher against the Cincinnati Red Stockings. He could beat everyone, but he couldn't beat George Wright and his team. And as I started to look into George Wright, because he was an interesting character, I mean, king of baseball and inventing the position of modern type play for shortstop. This was a guy who was interesting to look into. I found that his path kept crossing with Albert Spalding. As I mentioned, they became teammates, then they became competitors, then they became part of the same group in the sporting goods empire. And I looked at all this and I said, wow, this is a good book. I really could do something here. And I did. And the book came out February 4th, so I'm excited. Yeah.
So for people who don't understand or don't know, there's a million different ways to get published, but did you pitch it to an agent or did you pitch it directly to the publisher? How did that work?
Yeah, it's interesting because I had already published one book a few years ago, as you had mentioned. And so I had an agent for that. And when I went to the agent with this book opportunity in my mind, she said, sports books, they're tough. I don't know if we're going to get interest in. I said, give it a pitch. I'm writing a proposal. You pitch it out there and see what happens. And she did, and she got some interest from a number of different people. And we settled on Roman and Littlefield, which is a great publisher. By the way, they've been bought by Bloomsbury. So their name is in transition as well. But you don't need to necessarily have an agent to pitch a book to Roman and Littlefield or University of Nebraska Press or McFarland. Those guys are actively seeking authors to write books. And so, this could have gone a number of ways. I happen to have an agent that worked out well. You don't need it. And Paul, I'm sure the publishing world is sort of a strange animal. You never know how you're going to get in and how it's going to work. But if you're a writer and you want to get your stuff out there, you have to get to a publisher who really is dedicated to getting stuff out. And Roman and Littlefield is dedicated to sports, especially baseball. So it was a good match.
It's a great match, and it's a great publisher. So congratulations on that.
Thanks.
How's the book doing so far? I mean, you got some great, John Thorne of all people.
Yeah, absolutely. I've got some good endorsements. John Thorne, the official Major League Baseball historian, I got him to take a look at the book, and he really enjoyed it. So he gave me a nice blurb on the back cover. But the review organizations, the first one's in already. A reviewer called Booklist. They gave it a starred review. They called it a sneaky good baseball history. I sort of like that, it's sneaky good. But the idea of getting some early momentum is sort of important, right? And it started out that way. Sales are going pretty well. Selling online, through Rowman & Littlefield and Amazon and Barnes & Noble, that sort of stuff. But because Booklist gave it a starred review, a lot of libraries across the country look at that, and they've come in for books. So it's firing on all cylinders here. I'm excited about it.
That's awesome. Are you doing any book tours or anything like that?
Well, I've done a couple of things that I've set up related to getting out to Cooperstown. I'm actually going to be presenting at the end of April at the 19th Century Research Conference that they have out there. They've invited me to give a presentation to about 100 people out there. The next month, I'm at the Cooperstown Symposium for Baseball and American Culture. I'm really excited about that because it's a completely different audience. It's not just baseball fans. It's authors, it's historians, it's journalists. It's just a whole mix of people who love baseball and how it's impacted our culture on a day-to-day basis. So I'm involved there. I'm going to be up in Boston in the beginning of June at Boston Public Library. I'm giving a presentation there at their main branch, Copley Square. And, those types of things are exciting to me to get out and do that. And of course, through SABR, I'm giving some presentations to a number of different chapters. So there's a lot going on. I'm doing some local library things, and it's a lot of fun so far.
It's great. And you're doing great. That Boston library, my one son lives in Cambridge. They have a great book sale, a used book sale. At least they used to a couple of years ago in the basement. And I found some great books in there, and like they're like $1 each or something. So take a look.
Well, I will, but I'm able to sell my books there as well at the end of the presentation. It's going to be a lot of fun. But Boston Library is steeped in baseball history. They've got a number of different collections that are great as far as sourcing of information, as is New York Public Library. So both of those really good for baseball historians who are trying to dig deep into some history.
That's awesome. So we started off saying you're a member of SABR. How long have you been with SABR?
Yeah, it's interesting. I've only been a member for a couple of years because I wanted to join related to doing a baseball book, and I wanted to see what the real researchers and baseball fans are talking about. Because you go to SABR, Society for American Baseball Research, to do a little digging, but also to meet real baseball fans. And you, as you mentioned, we were at an event a couple of weeks ago that was outstanding in Paterson, New Jersey, at Hinchliffe Stadium there, Charles Muth Museum, and just people who love to hear good baseball stories. And the Larry Doby story, there's none better. So to listen to that, it was great. But in the couple of years I've been involved, I've met so many people who not only are great fans, but they want to help in your research. They want to understand what's your story about baseball, and they want to tell you theirs. And you meet people who you can really become connected with through baseball. It's a lot of fun. There's 7,000 members across the country, right? And the Northern New Jersey chapter is humming with you and Donna Mascarella doing the administrative duties. Is great. We enjoy it.
Again,
and it's been
most
fun.
Of that work is done by Donna.
Okay.
She asked me to be the vice president. I said yes, but she's doing
that.
I don't know. If not 100%, 99.999%.
You worked it out well, right? You got the title, but she's carrying the load. No,
she sure is. She's a good deal. She's a dynamo. She is a dynamo.
Great.
She just works hard, I return her emails, and I do a little bit, but I mean, she's just a phenomenal leader, and we're lucky that she took over our chapter.
But you guys have created a great atmosphere. That's the key, right? To get us together, to get us out to events, to have things that bring us together as a group, and we appreciate it.
Well, thank you. And then we're next month in March, there's going to be the big event at the Yogi Berra Museum.
Yeah.
So that should be great. So let's take another moment here. I did want to ask you a little about what George Wright did after baseball. I think we touched a little upon that. I guess he founded a sporting goods company, and then he was bought out by Albert Spalding. Is that sort of the story?
Right, but there's a little more to it than that, in that George Wright was always trying to find what's the next sport that's going to be on the horizon as the most popular sport. He and Henry Ditson found lawn tennis, and they made it their own, and they sold a tremendous amount of equipment into lawn tennis. He brought golf equipment over from Scotland, and he introduced golf on the public links. There were no public links. He had to create them in Boston in order to play a round of golf. And he started to advertise his clubs. He brought in a guy from Scotland who was his chief golfing engineer. Oh my gosh, what did this guy do? He designed clubs, he designed golf courses, and he went around the Northeast popularizing golf. All because George Wright likes to popularize sports. There was a sport called roller polo. Who ever heard of roller polo? It was in the 1880s and 1890s a phenomenon in the Northeast and the Midwest. It was basically hockey on roller skates in a roller rink. 6 guys on each team skating around with field hockey type sticks, swatting at a rubber ball that's bouncing all over the place. You can imagine the heart-pounding, visceral nature of this to the fans, watching these guys careening around the roller rink, ramming into each other, hitting each other with sticks. It was just amazing. People went just to see the fights that would break out, thinking of a precursor to ice hockey, right? And that's really, that's really what happened. Over the course of the 1880s and 1890s, roller polo, if you will, faded out as ice hockey became stronger. Because ice hockey, you had a puck that was on ice that you could control with a long stick rather than swatting at it with these short field hockey type sticks. But George Wright found these sports, he popularized them, sold a ton of sports equipment in doing it, and that's really what attracted Spalding to want his business, because he developed all these other markets. So he was quite a guy, and joined, of course, the Hall of Fame in 1937. He was 90 years old, and he missed induction by 2 months. He passed away at 90, 2 months before he would have been inducted into the Hall of Fame. Can you imagine that? Just wild. And Albert Spalding got inducted 2 years later in 1939. So those two were quite a pair, no question.
That's great. You know what I didn't do? Oh my goodness. Bad job out of me. I did not show the book cover. Here it is.
Please do. There we go.
Selling Baseball, How Superstars George Wright and Albert Spalding Impacted Sports in America.
Fantastic.
Jeff, it's just phenomenal. We only have a couple minutes left, but you are a big Yankees fan, as am I, obviously.
Sure.
What are you thinking about the 2025 Yankees as spring training is just about kicked off?
I'm thinking they have to fill that third base hole that they have. Last year they had the same problem. I mean, they brought over Jazz Chisholm, but not as a third baseman. He was going to play second, and Glaber was supposed to shift over. And of course, Glaber threw another temper tantrum and just wouldn't have anything of it. And of course, Glaber's no longer with the team. Well, makes sense, doesn't it? Problem is, they still have that hole. But I think 2025 is going to be a great year for the Yankees, because even though they lost Juan Soto, who was a superstar, no question about it, Soto had to go where he would be, what did Reggie say? He would be the straw stirring the drink, right? So he goes to the Mets, and that opens up a whole bankload of cash for Steinbrenner to start to get players who we really need. I mean, Max Fried, let's get a star left-handed pitcher, and let's get Devon Williams in relief, and let's get Goldschmidt at first base. And I think they made all the right moves. but they've got to plug that third base hole. And I don't know. What do you think?
I agree 100%. I was saying all winter, if the Yankees re-sign Soto, I will get a season ticket, a partial season ticket package. When they didn't re-sign Soto, I said, okay, I'm like, I get it.
Yeah.
As $700 million or whatever, I get it. So if they build a great team, I will get that small season ticket package. And my son will tell you, we were sitting there like ready to pull the ready. You think we ought to get it? I'm just waiting for them to get a third baseman. And I get frustrated every year because it seems they do this every year. They get 80, 85, 90% of the team built, and you're like, that looks great, but we need a couple more guys. And then they just say, yeah, well,
it's not going to happen with DJ LeMahieu playing third. It's not going to happen with Oswaldo Cabrera. I mean, they need a solid guy. If they could get Arenado, I mean, that would be great. I don't know if they can or not. He's difficult to pull away from the Cards, although the Cardinals say they want to deal him. So, that would be great. But I did you one better, Paul. I sprung for the limited package. I got a 12-game package. I did it very modestly, and I said, okay, I'll give it a shot here because I think they're going to be back in the World Series. I really do. Last year they made the World Series, even though they had some glaring problems in the infield, and I think they can still cover for that. They're not going to win the World Series if they don't have a third baseman of the highest caliber, though. So, but I got the limited season ticket package. First thing I did was I made sure that my daughter and granddaughter were going to go to a game with me because they are both diehard Yankee fans like I am. And you know what it's like when you got Yankees in the blood, you got to go to the stadium. So
you do. Now, and to be fair to the Yankees, the reason it's even a possibility is the tickets are not that expensive. I grab a calculator right here. Let's just see. I think as your package, mine was going to be, I think, 9 games, $15 a game. Yeah, like you could be a Yankees season ticket holder with a 9-game package for $135.
It's really crazy.
So I guess is your price the same? So you did 12?
No. I did 12 2 seats, but I sprung for field boxes. I went the whole route. I said, if I'm going to do this, Paul, I want to do it up close and personal. And I want to get, and I talked to my daughter about it. I said, are you going to come to a couple of games? And I talked to some buddies. Are you going to be, and they're on board. And to me, it was a great move because what it does is it gives me access to playoff tickets,
exactly,
which I really want, and that's the whole point of Yankee baseball, right? We hear it year in and year out. If you don't make it to the World Series, well, it's another losing season. No, it's not that bad, but you got to make the playoffs. When they didn't make the playoffs 2 years ago, that was a season like no other, right? I mean, we couldn't believe it. Yeah. So I went full bore. It was a great move on my part, I think, because I think they're going to the World Series. So
wow.
I'm counting on it.
All right. So listen, when somebody says to you, I can't make it today, you have my number, call me. If I get the 9-game package, we won't be at the same games anyway. But if we ended up at the same game, you'll be down on the field. I would be way up behind home plate in the upper deck. So I'd much prefer your seat. So maybe we can make it to a game.
I'll throw a baseball up to you. Okay. one that I get, a foul ball that I get, I'll toss it up to you. Okay.
You're awesome.
I would love to be able to catch you at a game. That would just be a lot of fun. So maybe we can do it. Yeah.
Sounds good. Listen, we're already at the half hour. These things go much too quickly. Everybody, thank you so much for watching. Get a copy of Selling Baseball by Jeffrey Orens. Have yourselves a wonderful and terrific day.